Chelsea fans, welcome back to another week of ChelsChat with me, Moose, and JB. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell notification, and don't forget to comment. It's been a crazy couple of weeks since we've been on air. We've had obviously the Chelsea game where we've had our ups, our downs, and some positive notes as we've gone along. So we're going to go through the West Brom game, which was very much a tale of two halves, and the Tottenham game, which was very much a tale of two halves, and then the Crystal Palace game, which was just an all-rounded game. So where do we start, Jamie?
Firstly, if we're talking about the West Brom game, I need to apologise to everyone because I have a radio jinx where if I listen on the radio to a Chelsea game, we tend to lose. I listened to the first half of the West Brom game on radio, but I managed to get out in time to watch it on my phone for the second half. So we managed to recover. So I didn't completely cost us, but so I should apologise to everyone for that.
It's only too right, to be honest, because I'm real scenes. I mean, as a Chelsea fan, watching that game, it was just one of those. We couldn't do anything right to start with, and I think this has gone down to sort of one of the challenges we had. We haven't had a consistent back four, and we've got brought in all these great signings, trying to integrate them, and we've not kept a consistent back four. We had in that game Christensen and Thiago Silva in the back. I equally think there's been some standout performances by some of the other defenders. So Zoom has played an absolute unreal, but there's just been no consistency. I've seen Rudiger, you've seen Zuma, you've seen Tamori, you've seen Thiago Silva just come in and out of the squad. We've obviously had the absolute mare that was Alonso in that game. Probably better if we didn't have Alonso on the pitch to start that game. But that back four have just been so inconsistent in their signings. They've had no time to gel. And we knew that was going to be a problem for us as of last year. So I think that's been one of Frank's probably challenges. Because he's just not been able to go and pick four defenders that are consistent. I think in some of the other games, that's seen a more positive angle of where that's going. But I think sort of it's just been difficulties just not having an awareness. And then obviously everyone's been sort of focusing on where we've invested in the front half and forgotten about the back half. But just really poor in the first half of that West Brom game.
It was just individual errors, really. I mean, obviously Alonso for the first one, just heading it straight into the path of one of their players. That was, an individual mistake. You can't account for those, really. The Thiago Silva one, obviously, very Steven Gerrard-esque, I would say, watching it back. And then again, the third goal. I mean, the third goal you can say it's an individual error, but really, like the whole defending from that corner was just the second, the guy got the flick on. It was just like watching mannequins. Everyone just stood there watching the ball go past them. And that's obviously something that we've had a big issue with for a while now, is defending set pieces. So that worries me. That's the only one that really worries me from those goals, because, individual mistakes can happen. It's just a shame that they happened all in one game for us. But it's that consistent problem we have of defending set pieces or balls into the box in general that still seems to be happening, which did worry me from that game. But other than that, I think we showed heart and we showed spirit to fight back in the second half. Mason Mount, fantastic performance in that game. Obviously his goal was the one that set it all up for us.
Mason Mount, I think, sort of had an absolute. I think sort of he's got that Lampard-esque of dragging the team forward. I mean, the goal absolutely sublime, but it sort of just showed character for the rest of the team to sort of come from 3-0 down to draw 3-3. And equally, if we'd given a little bit longer, I think we could have gone on to win the game. So as much as sort of there were some horrific performances first half, disappointing mistakes, and you can forgive someone like Thiago Silva. You can forgive some of the performances, but I can't really forgive Alonso, and I can see him probably. We've got a day left of the transfer market. I can probably see him on his way out. I think he's burnt all bridges with Lampard and the team following that. Whereas I probably would have said, I wouldn't have put him in our transfer list. I think he's on his way out and probably one of the top targets for Milan.
I've heard some updates on that, which I'll give when we reach our transfer segment. But that might not be the case anymore.
I think he just sort of had, sort of from the reports of him heading back to the bus to watch the game, just didn't sound that positive following that. I mean, had his mistakes, but the reaction off the back of that was not what you'd expect from a Chelsea player. So I think sort of that was the challenge. But all in all, I think sort of it did show a lot of courage to come back from 3-3.
Especially, it was the academy boys that kind of got us back into it and scored the 3 goals. Callum had a good performance second half. He seemed to just turn a switch and become the player he was a couple of years ago again, which was nice to see. Tammy getting the winner, as you want your strikers to do, the equaliser, which you want your strikers to do. So there was positives to take from it. Obviously, a 3-3 draw with West Brom, a team that looked like they're going to be whipping boys this season, you can't take anything as a positive from that. But it was from the position we was in and how it ended up, I think you can take a couple of positives out of that. So I was happy with a few of the performances second half that I saw. And as I said, 3-3 with West Brom's not a good result, but from where we was, it felt like a win in the end to me after watching that second half.
And what you've got to give to Frank is he's had no pre-season whatsoever, and he brought in he has brought in the most talent in anyone else in the Premier League. So the most sort of movers and shakers, and probably the most need to go and adapt sort of some of the squad. So we're sort of having our pre-season in the first couple of games. We're not going to have a perfect run. We need to try out a few different things. We know it didn't work last season, so the back four needs to be changed. We're adapting Werner and Havertz to the sort of the way in which sort of the Premier League plays, and we still haven't got all of our talent back. So at the point of the West Brom game, there was no Chilwell, there's no Pulisic, there's no Ziyech. There's a number of players that are sort of going to be really impactful for our season, not in the team. And equally, they've not played with all the players around them, so they're not going to hit the ball rolling. I think I sort of heard from the weekend, most sort of Thiago Silva still not fluent in English. So most of the back four are speaking French.
You look at who we played against Palace, our back four. Everyone other than Chilwell speaks French. So you've got obviously Mendy, who's just come from the French league, Silva, who's just come from the French league, Zuma, who is French, Azpilicueta, who played for Marseille for a while, Kante in front of him. So, he had that base of people around him. Everyone literally around him were French speakers. So it probably made it easier for him to communicate. And whilst it takes him a bit of time to learn English, that's fantastic. And to be honest, Zuma alongside him is exactly what I want to see anyway. It's them two, for me, is the best centre-back pairing we can go for.
Yeah, for me, I think sort of when we move on to the Spurs game, for me, the first half, we were on fire. Great to see Werner, that attacking threat he brings. He's going to be a real danger for us. It still needs a bit of an adaptation to the Premier League, getting to know how all sort of physical and sort of demanding the league is. But absolutely amazing first half. Couldn't fault them. I think the only fault probably is not getting enough goals to sort of kill the game off for the second half. And then we came out quite sluggish. I know that Lampard in the first half had been having a back and forth with Mourinho. I don't know whether sort of Mourinho got in his head a little bit, but Mourinho's team came out probably better than us second half. We managed to hold out for most of the second half. Then sort of the goal came, and then when it goes down to penalties, because there's no opportunity to sort of really pull yourself back into that game, it's very difficult as a keeper like Mendy to come in and your first game in for your new club to go
Yeah.
into a penalty shootout. You could see that Hugo Lloris was more prepared than Mendy to go and take all those. He knew the plays, he knew the way in which our players usually take their penalties. Felt very gutted for Mason Mount because he's been having absolute outstanding games. I know that a lot of fans recently are sort of complaining around us trying to fit him into the squad. And I think sort of West Brom game definitely proved it for us. Didn't have a great game in the Tottenham for the second half, but I think he's integral to our team and how we play. But it's going to be...
I think people need to remember as well, he's being played out of position quite a lot. He's very versatile, but, you know, playing on the wing is not his best position. So for me, I think, you know, he's done a good job when we've had no wingers there. You know, he's been filling that role for us. We've now started to put Werner out there, which personally, again, I don't particularly like. I prefer Werner down the centre. And, you know, that's going to come over time. And Mason will get a few breaks because we're going to have, you know, like the likes of Pulisic and Ziyech coming back. But for the time being, you know, he's the one that starts the press for us, and he starts, you know, getting in the face of the opposition and putting them under a bit of pressure when they're on the ball. He's vitally important for us, I think, and it'd be a shame for us to drop him completely. I don't think Lampard will do that.
No.
But I think he's warranted his place in the team, to be honest. I think last season, you know, he probably was second choice to be in player of the season. And so I don't see any reason for people to be on his backs. It's just an agenda. I think certain fans have an agenda against him, which I don't like to see.
And to be fair, to your point there, I think he's been played out of position. And we've not been playing well through the midfield. We've been playing quite a negative midfield for pretty much all of our start of the games. We've been playing a mixture of Kante and Kovacic, Jorginho, or all three. And I just don't think that we can play those. I mean, we'll get on to sort of the transfer talk in a bit, but I think Jorginho, for me, is just very negative. Had a good game in the Crystal Palace game. But for me, Kante and Kovacic are brilliant, but I would rather us have two number 8s and play maybe Havertz and Mount in those positions. I don't know why we've not played that yet, but I think sort of it's probably down to the wingers. He's trying to fit all of those players in. Tammy's played quite well, but the Tottenham game just disappointing. I think sort of we didn't kill the game off in the first half, and we came out with the traps quite slow for the second. But yeah, I think for me, yeah, disappointing game. I think, to be honest, I'd rather not have the League Cup this year, as much as sort of a fan that's just got out of the League Cup can quite easily say that. But I don't really want to be distracted at all this year. It's going to be congested in the transfers, in the fixture list, and I really just don't want to have the League Cup. It's the cup that no one really cares about, if I'm going to be honest.
Only until you get to the final.
Yeah, of course.
Once you're in the final, you want to win it, but until then, it's not really, you know, not something you're kind of dreaming about.
I think with how many games, I mean, you saw Spurs this last week, how many games they've had on their list. There's only so many of those you can do and keep all of your players fit and maintain the level of performance you're looking for. I'd rather just not have too many distractions this year. Lampard has spent a lot of money, needs to prove results. And I think there's two areas that we can do that. I think the Champions League and Premier League and the potential of maybe an FA Cup run is probably enough for us. I know we've got a good depth in squad, but as we've seen from the start of the league, we haven't quite found the formation that creates that consistency from that squad. And then obviously, Crystal Palace game. It was a great game, to be honest. I think we've spoke around this just before we came on air. We weren't amazing, but there is sort of an element of class when you can still put 4 goals past Crystal Palace, who've sort of seen away United at Old Trafford, etc. So, what were your thoughts on the Palace game?
I think there was obviously big positives from the game. Firstly, we kept a clean sheet, which for us seems to have been a massive challenge recently. So that was obviously a positive. Not that Palace really put too much on us. But still, it's a step forward. It's, you know, we managed the counter attacks well. Mendy, I think he didn't really have much to do. I think he had a cup of tea at half time and come back out and sat there. He might as well have been watching something on Netflix, to be honest. He really didn't have much to do at all.
Still did better than
Yeah.
Kepa, though.
Yeah, Kepa still would have found a way to concede a goal, wouldn't he? But no, so he you know, didn't really have much to do. The defence seemed to have everything pretty much covered, as well as, you know, our midfield. What I really liked, and again, I didn't get to actually watch the full game, but I managed to see some extended highlights. It seemed very much like a lot of the passing between the players, especially first half, it wasn't really coming off, but it looked like they were doing the right things. They had the right ideas, but it's just that connection is not quite there yet. But it's improving every week. I can see that, you know, like the Werner and the Havertz connections, and even with all the others, it seems to be improving every week. And, you know, I think once you bring Pulisic back in and you bring Ziyech back into the fold, and all of those start gelling, we're going to be devastating going forward. Once Werner starts banging in the goals, once, you know, Havertz starts clicking with everyone around him as well, it's going to be unstoppable. It really is. And I mean, we've had some less than ideal performances in games and results to start the season, but really we're not much worse off than our rivals, and we're still in probably second gear. And by the time we get to fifth gear, sixth gear, wow, you know, like it's going to be something to see. And
Yeah.
I'm still feeling very positive and very excited. And I really think we're going to have an amazing season this year.
I think we are. I think you could see sort of moments of absolute class in the game. You could see Havertz switch on some of his sort of skill. Still not 100%. He's still only sort of sitting sort of 70% of what you'd expect from him, but sort of winning the penalty, you know, he just had that class. Werner, I've seen him. I mean, we've seen him in certain games where you could just see his absolute predator instinct to go and score a goal. I just don't think we found the right position to go and get the best out of him yet. I think sort of we've got all the right players, and I think there might be one or two additions that still come in, maybe one or two people go out on loan, because I think we want to make sure that although we've got a large squad, is that people are still getting experience that allow them to develop. But I think for me, you can see the mechanics there. I mean, Chilwell, he looks like the right left
brilliant,
back.
wasn't
He looks well worth the money if he can continue that form.
Yeah.
I think sort of bringing Dave in, we still need that level of a level head. I mean, even just to the point of having a captain who tells Tammy to get off the penalty because he's still not doing that. That for me is just sort of the level head. We just need to make sure that we don't have complaints on the pitch. I know that Tammy wants to score because
he's a striker.
He's a striker, but also he's probably under pressure since sort of early this year. We still just need to go and make sure we get the goals on the scoreboards, because I don't really care who scores, just as long as we're doing well. Zuma looks dangerous, and I'm glad that we haven't sort of waded on potentially sending him out on loan anywhere. I know that Everton and a number of others were looking for his signature, but he looks like a good centre-back this year, especially with the level head in someone like Thiago Silva next to him. So yeah, I mean, positive. I mean, it probably leads us very much on to the transfer tracker. Transfer tracker. Interesting. Like, so we're obviously only sort of less than 24 hours till the transfer window ends. I think sort of probably there's potentially one, maybe two people we might bring in. I don't think there's going to be anyone special. We've done most of our business at the start of the season. It's probably going to be more interesting than people going out. So I know that there's the potential of Hudson-Odoi, Ruben Loftus-Cheek, Jorginho, potentially Rudiger, are all sort of in the mix for potentially making an exit, most likely on loan, because we're probably not going to see anyone go for a permanent contract. And then equally, there is Rice and Partey who may come in. It's going to be interesting because I doubt they'll take Hudson-Odoi out based on the fact that we've still got two wingers who are unfit, and he adds an element of pay.
Yeah, Hudson-Odoi is confirmed to be staying now. I've seen this afternoon that they've basically Bayern have given up because they could see we weren't gonna let him go, so they're actually now signing Douglas Costa from Juventus instead of Hudson-Odoi, so we can take a deep breath and thank Jesus that we're keeping Hudson-Odoi now, which is good. Ruben potentially could go out. I could see maybe him going on loan to someone like West Ham as part of a kind of deal for Rice if we do go in last minute for him. But I've not really heard too much else in terms of interest. Southampton, I think, was the other team that I'd heard was interested, but not too much more than that. Alonso, it sounds like he's actually staying now. So there was comments from Lampard saying, he won't hold any grudges against his players and blah, blah, blah. Inter Milan have come out and said Alonso's not going to them. So that's kind of been ruled out. So it looks now more likely again that Emerson's going to be the one to make way. So, these things keep changing constantly. Rudiger, I really don't know. There's a lot of interest. Tottenham obviously has been strongly linked if they can't get Skriniar. But then he's also got interest from Barcelona, from PSG, from Roma, from a couple of Italian clubs, actually. So he could end up anywhere. I don't know what's going to happen with him. Tomori's going to stay, I'm pretty sure now. It was only really Everton that were in for him. But I think they've signed someone else now. But yeah, so outgoings is kind of, I think the Bakayoko, is another one.
Yes.
He's off to Napoli. So he's having a medical today. I think he had a medical and that should be kind of confirmed tomorrow. And then obviously...
completely forgot he was with us, to be honest.
Yeah. Well, we've still got Victor Moses as well. He's looking at potentially going back to Inter Milan. That's a possibility of something to happen tomorrow. And then the kind of big one, if it happens, would be Jorginho to Arsenal. So Arsenal have obviously been looking for someone in that central midfield area. They've been linked with Partey. They've been linked with Aouar. They just don't seem to want to pay the money for them. So to be honest, I can't see that happening either because I can't imagine they'll want to spend the money that we would want for Jorginho.
The only thing I've seen is they're going in for wanting in for a loan for him. My only worry is that he could be I think his style of football could fit in with what Arteta wants. Therefore, thinking that he potentially could be quite a useful signing for Arsenal means I'd probably want him not to go.
On the flip side, though, I think they have quite a weak defence. So if you put a Jorginho in front of that, then you've got no one protecting that weak defence, which means it's going to be, I mean, even Sheffield United, who haven't been able to score all season, managed to get one past to Arsenal. So it just shows you what, they're vulnerable at the back. And I think that would make them even more vulnerable at the back.
I just don't want anything that improves Arsenal's standards, to be honest. To be fair, what I can potentially see is I don't really see Rice going. And the reason being is I think West Ham, as much as sort of have had the difficulties in their back room, selling players that they didn't really want, have had a great start to the season, scoring goals, beating sort of Leicester at the weekend. And I feel that if they lose Rice, I think the fans will just lose all faith in... the only reason I could see that is if they bring Ruben in to sort of as a make way as part of that. I could realistically see as Arsenal dropping their interest in Partey and we going in for the transfer, whatever he's 45 that he's got as a...
Yeah, his buyout clause. I mean, we could still, sneak in and get him anyway. We've probably got the funds to do that. But it just depends because obviously Rice is the first choice, and we've seemed to be just going for our first choices this year. So I don't know. I mean, we've been scouting Partey for a while now, from what I've read, but he is the second choice to Rice. It depends how desperately we want to either get someone in now, or are we willing to wait for Rice until maybe January or next summer. So it all depends, really. I wouldn't be overly surprised if we don't bring anyone in, and we just stay as we are and just get rid of some of the additional squad members that we don't particularly need. That
Let's
wouldn't
just call
really.
them dead
I
weight.
think, yeah. Well, some of them are not particularly dead weight. Ruben, I wouldn't call Ruben dead
No,
weight.
Ruben's not. But I completely agree with
He
you.
needs game time, though. I think he needs to get out and get some game time, because he's not going to be able to play for us at the moment because he's not at the level that he needs to be. But we've seen him to being at the level he needs to be. He just needs to get that game time. And if he gets the game time with us, then it's going to hamper our chances. I think it's not going to. I mean, the few times he's played for us, he's not been great. So
he's been
I
playing
think he
out of
just needs the
position.
time away. Yeah, I think he just needs a bit of time away and just get the minutes under his belt. Come back next season, and then we'll hopefully see him back to his best again. Fully
I'd like
fit.
to see him go to Southampton, to be honest, because I think he's one of those clubs that just. I think West Ham, there's the risk that they just don't play him and they bench him.
Yeah.
Southampton, I feel, with the loss of Højbjerg to Spurs, I can see him go there and fill that gap. Is not as a defensive midfielder, but as a sort of quite an aggressive midfielder in the middle. Because not that I track Southampton's transfer signings, but I don't think they've necessarily filled that gap.
No, I mean, they've got Romeo, who plays as a holding midfielder, and then Ruben could play alongside him as another central midfielder, a box-to-box midfielder, which is kind of what he is. He's a box-to-box midfielder more than anything else. So, no, I think he could do well there. I think he could do well at West Ham as well, to be fair. Looking at how they're playing at the moment, if they keep this up, then that could be a good move for him as well.
So, yeah, I think sort of that's going to be interesting. We'll obviously keep you up to date with everything on our sort of social media. Anything we hear, you'll hear first. It's going to be an interesting season. I mean, just sort of obviously this evening as we've been doing the podcast, we've listened to sort of Aston Villa beat Liverpool 7-2. Couldn't get away with not mentioning that. You've obviously seen United lose 6-1. Leicester losing 3-0. Obviously, Man City the week before, 5-2 to Leicester.
And 1-0 with Leeds this week as well.
It's one of those ones where you just go, it looks exciting. The Premier League is back, and it is even better because we've always known that anyone can beat anyone in the Premier League, but even more so this season. And
anyone could beat anyone by any scoreline, I think, is more the addition this season.
I think that's partially because there's no fans. I think that's making a massive effect on some of the players. I think you've got some clubs like United that just haven't invested well. They've not brought in new talent. You've got sort of City struggling. And then you've got a lot of fans sort of like, I mean, you go to Anfield, the sort of volume of some of the fans there makes a massive difference. You're seeing none of that. There is no home advantage whatsoever. So I think it's going to be an interesting league. I mean, we're seeing some real standout people. I don't know where they'll be at the end of the season, but Everton, you called it at the beginning of the season. They look dangerous. James Rodriguez looks pretty impressive, and so does Dominic Calvert-Lewin.
Yeah.
I think they could be up there. I think they could be in the mix based on the performance of the first couple of games. Leeds, as much as we hate dirty Leeds, they're having a good start to the season. They're coming out and attacking. You saw them play City. They were attacking with like 7 players.
Yeah.
They're coming out and playing. It's what Sheffield United were doing last season, but in a very different way. They look like they're in trouble. It's going to be an interesting run. I'm excited. I'm watching as much football as I can, to be honest.
Yeah, so am I. I'm trying to, even, when it's not Chelsea and I'm kind of sat with my wife, I've just got my phone down there, just looking at the games, trying to keep up with what's going on, because it is just unbelievable this season. Just goals. Like, trying to pick a defence for your fantasy football team that's going to get a clean sheet is just impossible.
I'm going to have to play wildcard because quite a lot of the fans of the podcast are absolutely smashing me at the moment.
Oh yeah, I'm doing terribly.
Although the play predictor on the ChelsChat on the Chelsea app, I'm not doing too bad, not as well as I was for the season. I'm on 139 points, so I'm out of the top 100 now. I'm into 7,608.
I've improved. I think last time I was like 68,000 something. I'm now 21,000 and something. So I'm slowly improving, which is nice. But I need to stop predicting that Werner's going to be the first goal scorer every week because it's not.
Do you know what? I miss doing that for the Tottenham game, and I'd literally put Werner's going to score, Werner's going to score, Werner's going to score. Missed the Tottenham game, went, oh, that was my chance. And then I went, right, Havertz on Crystal Palace. Nah.
I think actually on the I didn't think Werner was going to play against Spurs, so I think I went for Abraham I went for Giroud. I went for Giroud in that one.
So it'll be interesting. Obviously, we've got the international break, so we'll hear a bit more around thoughts around the season, where we're going to go. Obviously, we'll give you the updates around some of the transfers next week, but hopefully we're in a good space. Everton-Liverpool is the first game back after the international break. That's going to be very interesting.
There's another game as well. Arsenal-City, I think, is the same day.
Yes.
So that's going to be interesting.
And then we've got Southampton straight after.
And then we've got United after that as well. So it's going to be an interesting couple of games, I think, when we get back.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting with United because they've had a really poor run of form. But equally, you never know with those signings. Someone like Cavani might actually hit the ground running, which would really wind me up.
Yeah.
But anyway, Chelsea fans, thank you very much for tuning in. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell notification. And comment below. We'd love to hear your thoughts around the last couple of games and what you think around any signings we should be making and any of the games that we're coming up against. We'd love to hear your thoughts. I'm going to leave you with is you stay classy, Chelsea fans.